Never go under a big truck unless you have to, or you might regret it badly.
Oh no!
Just now Archie was changing a flat tire when a lug nut got stuck in his wrench. He yanked it hard, pop, one nut rolled under a semi-truck. Worse, he didn't tell the truck driver, just crawled straight under the massive rig. The missing nut was lodged right between the dual tires. He stretched his arms straining to reach it. Then the nightmare began. The trucker was about to start the engine. Archie, clueless, kept squeezing deeper between the tires. The engine roared to life. Luckily, a loader spotted him. "Stop! Stop!" he screamed at the driver. Archie let out a blood-curdling shriek. The driver instantly dialed 911. Firefighters rushed to the scene. But here's the shocker. Archie wasn't hurt at all. Pulse? Normal. Blood pressure? Fine. They pumped up airbags under the truck, lifting the trailer inch by inch. One shoulder finally free. Then a jack raised the tire. Firefighters swiftly removed the nuts and pulled the wheel off. Archie was saved. And get this, they even found his missing lug nut. Wonder if he'll ever dare use it again. A tree branch ran straight through Harley's chest. The doctors gasped when they saw it. He had been street losing, lost control, hit a car, and crashed onto a pile of trimmed branches. Just as the doctors were about to start treatment, Harley's father Hernandez rushed in. He ignored his son's wounds and called him stupid, shouting that only an idiot could smash into a tree. In turn, Alex couldn't take it. He slammed Hernandez against the wall. Hernandez hit hard and walked away with a bloody nose. Dr. Bailey stormed over and yelled at Alex for crossing the line. She said the father was just terrified, and that fear was no excuse for Alex to use force. The doctors quickly operated on Harley. Because the branch was buried deep, they worked with delicate, steady hands. Once they stabilized every organ, they fired up a surgical saw and freed the thick limb from his body. But before they could breathe, Harley's blood pressure crashed. His renal artery had blown open. The surgeons fought the hemorrhage with everything they had. At last, they stopped the bleeding and saved his life. Later, Dr. Bailey met Hernandez in the cafeteria. Turns out he wasn't mad at his son. He was mad at himself. He'd known the street was dangerous and hadn't stopped his son in time. Feeling he had failed as a father, he could only pray for Harley's swift recovery. Archie was tidying up his bed frame when he noticed the sheet was stuck on the support. He yanked hard to free the fabric, but accidentally pulled the whole support off. The bedboard fell and trapped him underneath. Archie called out, but nobody answered. Left with no choice, he waited. Fortunately, it wasn't long before voices came from outside. It was Archie's cousin and his girlfriend Vicky returning. He was about to shout for help when he suddenly stopped. Something felt off, because right then Vicky was on the bed, cheating on him. Luckily, he wore his smartwatch. The physical pressure spiked his blood pressure, automatically dialing 911.
Ma'am, are you injured?
Yes!
The arriving firefighters didn't hesitate, bursting in with their battering ram. Romantic music was playing inside. The captain turned off the stereo. The crew stood confused. This didn't look like a 911 emergency. Then came cries from under the bed. Firefighters lifted the mattress, revealing poor trapped Archie.
Who's Archie?
My boyfriend?
Fiance, actually.
You're the boyfriend.
No, I'm the cousin.
Wait, you're her cousin.
His cousin.
They quickly freed him from the wreckage. As for that complicated relationship, well, that was the couple's business to figure out. Sean was supposed to be discharged today, but he sneaked a cigarette in his room. A split second later, the room flashed and burned. The doctors reached him fast, yet his face was badly scorched. Everyone was shocked he smoked while on oxygen. Sean's wife begged the doctors to save his looks. He earned a living with his face. As a salesman, he needed to meet clients. Plastic surgeon Mark pushed for immediate surgery because every minute raised the risk of infection. Attending surgeon Derek wanted to wait 2 days. Since Sean had just survived a previous operation, the two doctors argued in the room. Sean and his wife froze, afraid he might die. After a quick huddle, they chose to observe him overnight and operate the next morning. The surgery went smoothly, but Sean's face could never look exactly the same. Scars would always remain. His wife felt crushed. Dr. Bailey comforted them both. She said his face might look different, yet what truly mattered were the people he loved, and the ones who loved him. Have you ever been to a rage room? Emily went because she was heartbroken. Her husband Eric wanted a divorce. To cheer her up, her best friend Denise brought her there to blow off some steam. At first, Emily wasn't into the idea, but then Denise said, "Just imagine you're smashing your husband instead." That got Emily's attention. She agreed right away. They suited up in full protective gear and got ready to unleash their emotions. Denise went first to show her how it's done. Then she handed the bat to Emily. Emily tried, but it didn't seem to help much. Denise told her to swing harder, to find the root of her anger and let it all out. Like this, she said, Emily gave it another shot, and this time it felt much better. Denise encouraged her to think about all the bad memories with Eric, and it worked. Emily really got into it. But then something happened. Denise accidentally let slip a secret. Something only Emily and Eric should have known. Emily froze. That made her suspicious. When Denise couldn't explain herself, Emily realized the truth. Denise was the other woman. That was the final straw. Emily snapped. Seeing the fury in her eyes, Denise panicked. She dove into a metal barrel and hid. Then she called 911 in a panic. Firefighters showed up fast. Sergeant Grant told the captain that Denise was trapped inside the barrel. Emily had dented it so badly they needed to cut it open. Once they freed Denise, Emily stood up still fuming. Denise kept apologizing, saying it was all her fault. But Emily wasn't ready to forgive her that easily. And just like that, their friendship was over. Later, the fire crew decided this rage room was actually kind of awesome, so the captain brought them all back to let off some steam of their own. From work, from life, from everything. Janelle was biking when the ground suddenly started shaking. Curious, she looked back, only to see a massive flood roaring toward her like a wild beast. She quickly pedaled to escape, but how could a bike outrun a flood? Eventually, the rushing water swallowed her whole. Luckily, she survived, but she ended up trapped in a dark drainage tunnel. Her ribs and ankle were both broken. She quickly called 911. Dispatcher Maddie asked where she was. Janelle said she wasn't sure, but there was an SW sign on the wall. Maddie guessed she might be stuck inside a stormwater overflow tunnel. Maddie then asked if there was an electrical box nearby. Janelle looked up and saw one right next to her. Maddie told her to press the button inside. That way they could find her location. Janelle crawled toward the box despite her injuries, but it had a heavy lock on it. That hit her with a wave of despair. Then she remembered she had a repair tool with her. She pulled it out and started smashing the lock, but her body was too weak. She just couldn't break it open. Feeling hopeless, Janelle burst into tears. As they talked, Maddie learned more about her. Janelle had just gotten married 6 months ago. Then the pandemic hit. They were stuck at home together. Her husband loved mountain biking, but one day he came back and collapsed in front of her. The virus had taken his life. Since then, Janelle had lived in grief. Now that things were better, she decided to ride her husband's bike to feel his warmth one last time. But then the dam broke, and the flash flood dragged her into this nightmare. Maddie truly understood her pain. She gently encouraged Janelle to stay strong, because her husband wouldn't want to see her like this. Those words gave Janelle strength. She grabbed the tool and smashed the lock with everything she had, as if releasing months of pain, loss, and love. She finally opened the box and pressed the button. The flood system lit up with her location. Soon after, firefighters used the signal to find her and brought her to safety. It was -4 degrees Fahrenheit, but Gordon could only wrap himself in a plastic bag for warmth. Eventually, he couldn't take it anymore and passed out from the cold. Turns out, just moments earlier, an accident had caused a citywide blackout. Gordon, who was about to leave work, got trapped in the walk-in freezer. He quickly dialed 911, but dispatcher Maddie said firefighters would take at least a few hours to arrive. She told him to find a way to survive. Most freezers had an electronic emergency release which should still work even during a power outage. Problem? The switch was frozen solid, covered in a thick layer of ice. Gordon tried smashing it with frozen beef, but nothing worked. Now even Maddie was out of ideas. She told him to stay calm and find anything unfrozen to keep warm, but the freezer only had rock-hard meat and one plastic bag which did nothing against the cold. Soon Gordon collapsed from hypothermia, unresponsive to Maddie's desperate calls. Hours later, firefighters finally arrived. They rushed to cut through the steel door with a saw, but disaster struck. The saw ran out of power, and even worse, it was their last battery. Now they were in trouble. The door wouldn't budge and the windows were too small. Then Captain Bobby had an idea. We can activate the emergency switch from the outside. The team immediately understood. They grabbed medical equipment, a defibrillator. With quick precision, they hooked it up to the switch. A burst of sparks later, the steel door creaked open.
The soaked man used a dagger to split the bullet in two in order to survive, but who would have thought that what poured out was actually a few drops of river water? Bruce, trembling passively, could only take out another bullet. He knew that if this continued, his life would be lost. Fortunately, the bullet was not affected by the river water. He then poured the gunpowder in the shell onto the wooden stake. Enduring the cold weather of -20 degrees Celsius, he broke the branches around him into small pieces and placed them next to the gunpowder. Then he found another bullet, and then he picked up the dagger on the ground and kept pointing it at the bullet's butt. But after working for a while, he was shivering and couldn't concentrate at all. Bruce knew that being frozen into an ice sculpture was his only fate. He kept comforting himself and calming down. Then he made an uncertain plan. Aim at his butt, then pick up the stone and continue hitting the handle of the dagger. Finally, with the help of gunpowder, the fire of life that could save Bruce's life was ignited. But the crisis at this time has not been completely resolved. Bruce must nip all danger in the bud before the enemies who are chasing him find him. So while the fire was getting bigger and bigger, he decisively took off his wet shirt. He looked at the gunshot wound on his arm, then picked up the bottle of wine, took a gulp, and then poured the rest on the wound on his arm. At the moment when the alcohol came into contact with the gunshot wound, Bruce also shouted out in pleasure. Then he stuffed his mouth with his socks, picked up the dagger on the ground, screamed helplessly, and used his pants to disinfect the dagger in his hand. Then he made a great decision in his heart. Then he took the dagger and stabbed the wound with the tip of the knife. Under Bruce's operation, the bullet in his arm was finally dug out, but this was only the first step. In order to prevent the wound from getting infected, he stuck the dagger into the fire again. When it was burning red, he made up his mind and put the handle of the knife on the wound on his arm. At the same time, the bounty hunter chasing behind him was approaching Bruce quickly, as if he had sensed something. Bruce also anticipated that something bad was about to happen. He knew that he had delayed here for too long, so in order to confuse the enemy, he deliberately made a circle around and then used a branch to sweep away all the footprints of his real route. However, as he swept, he realized that his action was the stupidest method. It is only a matter of time before he is discovered. If he wants to get rid of the enemy's pursuit forever, he must have a foolproof plan. Looking at the big tree behind him, a way to achieve a surprise victory spontaneously comes to his mind. At the same time, the bounty hunters who were chasing him also discovered the fire that Bruce had lit. In order to find him quickly, they decided to split up, but they didn't know that a nightmare was waiting for them ahead. The man hiding in the tree watched his target slowly walk into the trap he had set, and he began to get nervous. He knew that once he was discovered, the situation would be reversed in an instant. But at this moment, the target seemed to have discovered something was wrong and stopped near the trap. The fat man watched the footprints on the snow disappear under the big tree. He couldn't help but murmur in his heart and looked towards the tree with doubt. The man hiding in the tree was instantly frightened by this scene. Once an accident happens, he will launch an attack at the first opportunity, but fortunately, the fat man did not find the man because of the cover of leaves. However, it was this small negligence of his that allowed Bruce in the tree to continue to act according to the plan. At this time, some mobile phones were found on the ground. Following the traces of dripping, his head was also touched. Bruce, who successfully killed the enemy, was so excited that he stumbled and fell from a tree several meters high. Fortunately, there was a corpse to serve as a cushion, so he was not seriously injured. Then, Bruce quickly looted the fat man's weapons and coat. He had to get rid of the body as soon as possible because he could feel that the target's companions were coming here quickly, and Bruce's hunch was not wrong. The moment they heard the noise, the fat man's teammates quickly came under the tree. When they gathered together, everyone was shocked by the scene before them. There was a cut on the fat man's stomach, and his intestines were scattered everywhere. It turned out that Bruce had just tried to warm his frozen hands. This gave the 4 members of the team another reason to kill Bruce. At this time, the instigator, who had already walked out of the forest, found a house at the foot of the mountain without a trace of the owner. With the consent of the team, Bruce borrowed a horse from here, but even with the help of the horse, he still couldn't get rid of the team's pursuit. Looking at the 4 bounty hunters chasing him, Bruce knew that he had to go back to his old ways. At this time, the enemy is in the open, and I am in the dark, leaving him much more room to defeat the enemy with a smaller force than if he had lit a bonfire first. As the fire grew more intense, thick smoke quickly spread out of the forest. This anomaly also gave guidance to the 4 bounty hunters. Bruce, hiding in the dark, watched the men slowly approaching the campfire. He did not have the impulse to launch a sneak attack. As he was alone and weak, he was waiting for an opportunity to kill them with one blow. However, until late at night, Bruce had not had the chance to catch the enemy alone. But he did not give up. In order to solve the problem once and for all, he could only leave here quietly and find another way. The next day, Bruce was looking for tools to make traps. When he saw a brown bear trapped to death by a hunter, he thought of a very sinister idea and did it right away. Bruce immediately took action on the idea in his mind. The man first used a dagger to cut open the trap that trapped the brown bear, and then threw it in the path that the bounty hunter must pass. Then he took a small branch from the pine tree, trim any extra branches completely, and then spread them on the snow for cover. When the bounty hunter passed by, the triggered trap instantly killed one of the 4-man team. The seriously injured hunter was dying, but his companions thought that as long as the trap on him was removed, he could still be saved. But the next second, the captain used his own method to help him get rid of the pain in this snowy and icy place. Perhaps this is the best way for a dying person to get relief. The original 5 bounty hunters have evolved into the current 3-man team, all thanks to the Bruce they are hunting. So everyone had another reason to kill him. At the same time, Bruce also encountered difficulties on the way to escape. 3 bandits wanted by the government targeted him. Originally, they should have kept their distance from each other, but one of them stubbornly believed that as long as Bruce was let go, he would definitely reveal the whereabouts of several people to the government. After all, the bounty on each of them was as high as $250. So even without the dissuasion of his 2 remaining companions, Bruce still decided to walk away. despite Bruce's plea for mercy and even his dignity in trying to dissuade the thief from returning to his companions. But his kindness was taken as an insult, seeing that the atmosphere around him had dropped to freezing point. And Bruce could feel that the bounty hunter was getting closer and closer to him. He had no choice but to take action and solve the trouble cleanly and neatly. Afterwards, Bruce was very grateful to the courier named Zhang Yang Da Dao. Not only did he give him a gun for free, but he also got a batch of unique tools for traveling from him. Bruce's guess was right. Not long after he left, the remaining 3 bounty hunters found the thief's body, and the captain saw at a glance that he was killed by Bruce. I wanted to chase after him and take revenge, but one of the bounty hunters in the team refused to leave no matter what. This is because the bounty on the thief's head is worth $250, which is much higher than the captain's offer. Anyone who kills Bruce will get a reward of $30, but there is no such good thing in the world. In order to teach him a lesson, the captain shot and killed his horse. Without a means of transportation, plus he was carrying a dead body, it was not easy for him to walk out of the desert. But this is the punishment for being fickle. Bruce, on the other side, has the bonus of a mount. But after being exposed to the sun for a long time, people still have some water to maintain their strength, but horses do not have such good treatment. Finally, he couldn't hold on any longer and fell on the road. However, looking at this huge monster, Bruce immediately thought of a way to escape the pursuit. So when the last 2 bounty hunters caught up, all they saw was a horse with its belly ripped open. Just as one of them was about to go forward to see what had happened, Bruce suddenly jumped out of the horse's belly and then controlled a bounty hunter at lightning speed. This sudden surprise scared the 2 of them instantly. I thought that since I had hostages, I would have the opportunity to discuss and judge the corresponding actions. Your actions. Your actions. Huh. Now, what kind of deep hatred is there between them that could make the captain so unsportsmanlike? It turned out that Neeson, who had experienced the Civil War 3 years ago, thought that he would be able to enjoy the rest of his life with his family after retiring. But who knew that the Northern soldiers led by Bruce not only burned down Neeson's house, but also accidentally trapped his son and wife inside. And all this was done by his men without Bruce's knowledge. Since then, Neeson has become an avenging angel. In order to kill Bruce more quickly and effectively, he even hired 4 bounty hunters at a high price, but they were all solved one by the experienced Bruce, and now his enemy finally knelt in front of him. Thinking of the past, Neeson was furious. I wanted to torture Bruce, but he kicked me on the knee without paying attention. The situation was reversed in just 1 second, but knowing he was in the wrong, Bruce did not kill. He told Neeson that the war was over, and the grudge between the 2 had disappeared. He then advised him to let go of the hatred and live the rest of his life in peace. After saying this, Bruce left this place of trouble. However, how can we talk about the hatred of killing wife and children? Just a half line just went up a little bit, and they just did it like this. Just like this. Just this one person